Hey, Mike Callahan, had a question submitted. How to go out and determine the salary of a evolving lawn care or home cleaning company. And so basically the question is really revolving around probably two parts in my opinion, at least in my experience in my business. So the first part of it is, how do you actually go out and continue to grow your bench and stay within your budget and actually figure out how much you should be paying the individuals on your existing team when you replace them? And then the second part of the question I think we should look at is, how do we go out and figure the salaries and compensation for new team members as the company continues to grow and evolve and scale? So it wasn't uncommon in my business several years to actually double in size each year. So those are things that I think really need to be taken into account well in advance of the upcoming season. So traditionally what we're going to do is, in a service business, if you're looking at, I would go out and create a BHAG, a big, hairy, audacious goal. And this is going to sound a little crazy at first, so hang in there with me. But the idea is that big, hairy, audacious goal is going to be 10 to 15 years. We're going to break that down into yearly goals and growth goals. And then as we get into, let's just say, going into 2020, if we had done this in, say, November or December, or we're going into 2021 and we're doing this in the beginning of Q4 going into next year, what we want to do is create an organizational chart of the existing business as it is. No names on it, strictly positions and responsibilities. So first thing is, we go in and we create our goals for 10 to 15 years. We back those into yearly goals. And as we're going into next year's goal, we create an organizational chart. Hopefully you already have one. But if you don't, we're going to create one with the existing positions and responsibilities only. Do not put names on it. Now, once you have that, we need to go in and project what our future growth looks like for the next 12 months on that organizational chart. And it is all the roles and responsibilities. So as the business is evolving, the business owner may be the bookkeeper. They may be the estimator. They may be the general manager in the morning getting the crews out. So each business is different. And as we scale, certain people in the organization may be wearing multiple hats. So the point of the organizational chart without any names in it, with responsibilities, we want to define all the roles and the responsibilities. Then as we go to grow out the management team or crews, so if we have 5 mowing crews and we're looking at 7 next year, and we've got those responsibilities, we're going to go in and potentially plug in the names of the existing people that are handling each role and responsibility in the business. And like I said, some people's names may be on multiple roles. Now, looking at the roles, are you taking one individual? So maybe one individual is running the shop, they're doing the maintenance, they're gassing the equipment, they're doing quality control and training, and maybe more. So obviously at that point, you're going to realize that person is probably overburdened with too much work. And then the compensation for that individual needs to be aligned to that. So that's for the first part of the compensation. But now that we have all the roles defined and who's sitting in them in the existing business, if we've got, say, maybe 4 more positions on 2 two-man crews, and we got gentlemen and lady that need to be put on those crews, we need to go in and figure out the existing wages on our team, so in the office and in the field. Now, your G&A fixed general administrative cost for the office is going to be fixed, projected into next year, as long as nothing changes. So that's the place I would tackle first. Figure out your fixed costs. So if you make 1 sale or 1 million sales, it doesn't matter. Your general administrative costs, your non-labor producing labor is going to be the same. Now, I think this is where it dives into the question that was being asked is, now that we have our organizational chart and our existing people with projected raises are plugged in there, we're going to put those on a thing that I call a average wage sheet. Now, if you've seen any of my videos where we go in and do a budget overhead recovery, it is the first sheet we go over. It's the average wage sheet. We're going to break the average wage sheet down per division of the business. So a basic example of average wage sheet per division in a lawn care industry would be landscape maintenance, hardscaping, and maybe irrigation or fertilization and weed control. Those are significantly different overhead models that are going to have to be addressed as far as wages. Now, we don't care about the overall overhead of the business, but the wages and compensation may be significantly different from a maintenance crew to a hardscape crew or a fertilization crew. So we want to break it down per division. And at first, we really don't want to put their names on there. We're going to put technician 1, crew leader 1, technician 3, and break it down per crew. and break down the pay levels, and then we can pencil in the projected employees for that year. So now that we've got, say, 5 mowing crews and we're adding crews 6 and 7, we have projected average wages that we've budgeted for. Now, below that, what we're going to do is average all of them to get an average wage across all of your crews. So let's say your average wage is $15.30. So then we know at that point, no matter who's out on those crews, on average, that's what it's costing us. And some people have more seniority or experience, so their pay is going to be higher, but we want to know on average what that's going to cost us. Then we're going to figure out our average overtime. So our average overtime that we're paying per season. So maybe it's 5%. 5% of our payroll for that season is going to be overtime. So we're going to figure out our average wage with average overtime. So maybe that bumps it up to about $18 an hour. So we know on average now, whoever's in the field, based on our 7 crews that we projected with future hires, is going to be, say, $18 an hour. Whether it's straight time or overtime, it's on average, that's what it's going to come out to be. The piece below that most people miss is labor burden. Now, labor burden is going to be your FICA, unemployment, workman's comp, holiday pay, vacation pay, any of those things like that need to be plugged in. And it's usually, if you call your payroll company, you can find it as a percentage of the dollar. So what you're going to do now is multiply your labor burden times your average wage across all your employees in each specific division. So it needs to be done per division. Now, this is probably a long answer to this question, but there's a reason why we're doing this. So now we've got each division, we've got an average wage with projected overtime and labor burden. So the gentleman or lady's question was, how do I go out and predict payroll increases or replacing individuals throughout the season in a quickly growing business? So this is how we tackle it non-emotionally. Now we have it hard copy on an Excel sheet or Google Doc, and we know based on the projected 2 crews that we have a technician in there for, say, $14 an hour, a crew lead at $18 an hour. That is what we can pay for those individuals. So the gentleman that was running Callahan's, when he would make those moves, I said, I don't really care what you pay the individuals, but on average, that crew has to cover that average wage. So the delta of the 18 and maybe the $15 an hour guy, when that comes out per hour, for that crew, that has to be taken care of. And if you're going to go fire, let's say Dave doesn't show up, he's a no-call, no-show. We've gone through the process in the handbook, and he is going to be either coached up or coached out. When we replace Dave, you have exactly what Dave was making within the budget. Now, if Dave was only making $13 an hour and the applicant that we found was probably going to need 16 or 17, then either when I was running the business or the gentleman who ran the business for me either had to take some money out of some other areas in the budgeted wage area, or maybe it's coming out of his pay. But that is what you have to work with within your budget. So the idea is we want to create a non-emotional budget that dials out your projected wages with overtime and labor burden. And once you have that into place, that's your roadmap for success, and that's your hiring guide. And I would always tell the manager, the gentleman running the business, like, hey, if you need to give this guy an extra $2 an hour, it's got to come out of somewhere, because that is our budget and that's where we're at. Now, obviously, there may be some exceptions. If we find an individual maybe in a management position or someone that, usually takes 3 or 4 years and they walked into the door and they're the perfect applicant, but then when we go back to that average wage sheet, we're going to add that number in there and see what does that projection of the extra $2 to $3 an hour with overtime and labor burden do to our overall budget. Does it move that percentage of projected profit so much that it's not worth getting that individual in there? But those are the non-emotional decisions that you can make once you take it out of your head, you project where you're going in the next 10 to 15 years, break it down to yearly goals, and at a bare minimum, you got to at least project and budget for the year in advance. And then that is your roadmap to a fast evolving company with non-emotion. Your wages, your average wages, your projected overtime, all budgeted in, and you can track it weekly. If you haven't seen our KPI sheet, definitely something to check out, but this is where we track all of that after it's been documented in a standardized budget. So average wages, so each person that goes in, you're putting their pay rate in. We're projecting how much overtime. So we have average wage across each division with overtime and then labor burden. And now we have a non-emotional roadmap to go out and hire to the budget what we've projected. So comments or questions, drop them below. But I want a big shout out to Megan. Definitely dropping a lot of knowledge. Megan likes the PPP and accounting right now and everything that's going on. I want to say what's up with Bobby Follett, direct competitor in my local market for years, great guy. Tony Douglas, Chase Holmes, Todd Goodrich, another great guy in the Rochester, upstate New York. Keith Taylor, and everybody else watching, and Charles Clark obviously as well. What's up, buddy? Didn't see you up there. But the goal is, if you haven't done it, we're going into the end of Q2. You've got 6 months left in this year. Get an average wage put together. How many projected hours of production are you going to have for the rest of the year? Create a budget and stick to it, and create daily and weekly accountability. And once you're comfortable with it, bring your team in and show the wins and losses and get them to tie into and buy into that accountability and budget. So comments, questions, drop them below, but I thought I'd make a quick video. How do you go out and set a budget and stick to it and have basically a roadmap how to go out and hire new employees and stay within that budget? Because the worst thing you want to do is go into a season, grow more than you projected, and start hiring up and outside of that budget. So we need to track it and stay true to whatever we put down on that paper. And if we can't stay true to it, we need to run the numbers before we do that to make sure that it's not eroding our bottom line profit. Most lawn care and landscape companies net margin nationally, I believe, is about 4 to 6% net. In my opinion, it's not worth putting a crew out for less than 10% net profit. So from what I've seen with most people we work with at Simple Growth, most companies start out 15 to 20% projected net, and it is these mid-season shifts and pivoting that we are desperate for an employee, and we pay way outside of what has been budgeted. And we project everything in there, but it's that non-billable drive time and accountability that we don't track because we just think it's going to come out in the wash, and it doesn't. So hopefully that was helpful, but go out, figure out where you want to be in the next 10 to 15 years, back it up to yearly goals, and then create that projection of an organizational chart with no names, which is important because we're not building the position around Bill, Joe, or Bob, or Susie. We're building it around the position, and then we are going to train to the skill set. So if we hired and built a position around someone, that's going to be really hard to replace that position. So a lot of things that we've gone through the gauntlet in my company and learned the hard way, so I thought I would share it. But build the position to the position, mark down the responsibilities, don't put names on it, and then make another version of that organizational chart. Put the people's names in there that you're projecting to have in there for the year, and then take those people, put them into an average wage sheet per division. So basically landscape maintenance, design build, irrigation, fertilization, those are probably all different ones. And well, if you're doing snow removal in the Northeast, that's definitely a different division because those pay rates can almost double, some cases triple. So that's going to be your financial basically roadmap to hiring and firing and what pay you have in the budget. And if you don't, at least in my opinion, it's eroded bottom line profits a lot quicker. So it's a good non-emotional benchmark, especially if you're growing and scaling your business and you don't want to be the business owner having to make all decisions and hire and fire. You can give that document to whoever's there and hold them accountable to it. And now when we build that out, hopefully in the beginning of the year, you brought that lady or gentleman in when you build that out, so they have ownership, and they have ownership of the numbers that are on that page. So it's not you dictating to them what they can pay. They have had a 50% input of what the average wage is going to be for each position. So we'll see you again with Callahan's Corner. You ask the questions, we answer them live here on Facebook.